pointed out in your statement regarding the confirmation of Tulsi Gabbard, there was one Republican who voted against the nomination of Tulsi Gabbard. It was Senator Mitch McConnell. Similarly, how does the administration view Senator McConnell? Can he be a partner in the president's legislative agenda? Are you disappointed that he voted against not only Tulsi Gabbard, but also Pete Hegseth to be the defense secretary?
Ah, yes. Another day. Another ridiculous meltdown from the usual suspects. You would think, after all these years, the media and their political lapdogs would learn to construct an argument that doesn't immediately collapse under the weight of its own hypocrisy. But no, instead, we get another round of screeching and pearl clutching because, brace yourselves, someone in government is actually trying to do their job properly. Let's start with Mitch McConnell, the human embodiment of a spineless career politician. This guy has been in Washington longer than some of us have been alive, and yet he still manages to act like a clueless bureaucrat who just stumbled onto the scene. The press secretary absolutely nailed it when she pointed out how laughable it is that Republicans hesitate to support Trump's nominees while Democrats rally behind Biden's circus of incompetence without hesitation.
Disappointed in any Republican who chooses willfully to vote against the president's exceptionally qualified cabinet nominees and picks to lead his America First administration. Not a single Democrat swayed from voting against President Biden's nominees, and we know how many of them turned out. They turned out to be atrocious at their jobs, leaving America much worse than they were when they took the oath of office. And so I've said it repeatedly from this podium. I addressed it at the beginning of my remarks. We expect all Republicans to vote, to stay tough and strong, vote for President Trump's nominees so we can get to work and continue to work very hard to implement this president's agenda.
The fact that McConnell is still playing political games instead of doing something useful is exactly why people hate Washington. Then we have the absolute desperation from the media to spin Elon Musk into some kind of secret ruler of the country. Apparently, because he dares to make things run efficiently and isn't a soulless corporate puppet, we're supposed to believe he has presidential power. This is what happens when journalists spend more time doom-scrolling Twitter than actually researching the nonsense they spew. The press secretary's response was perfect, because honestly, how stupid do you have to be to think Musk is some kind of shadow president? The people pushing this narrative are the same ones who told us inflation was transitory and that men can get pregnant. It's actually hilarious how the media suddenly pretends to care about the Middle East when they think they can weaponize it.
Utterly ridiculous. Elon Musk addressed this in the Oval Office yesterday. The president addressed it as well. Elon Musk is serving at the pleasure of the president, just like everybody else on this team. He takes directives directly from the president of the United States. And I think some of the comments that you referred to are nothing more than a failed attempt from the media and from Democrats to try to sow division in this White House. We saw them do it in the first term. We're not going to let them do it in the second term. This is a unified team who is working at the pleasure of the president to do what's right for the American people.
Trump meets with Jordan's King Abdullah to discuss practical solutions, and somehow that's controversial? What's the alternative? Oh, right. The usual armchair experts who want to virtue signal about stability while letting the entire region collapse into chaos. The fact that the administration is actually thinking long-term instead of making empty statements should be a breath of fresh air. But no.
The president wanted me to share with all of you that he had a wonderful meeting with King Abdullah of Jordan yesterday. They discussed many things, including the Gaza Strip and its future at great length. The king would much prefer that the Palestinians stay in place, with the additional land to be used for new development, which would greatly create jobs at levels never seen before. King Abdullah mentioned that yesterday. He also committed to accepting 2,000 sick children from the Gaza Strip, which the president called a beautiful gesture. So the administration continues to work with our Arab partners in the region. We stand closely with our ally Israel.
That would require the media to acknowledge that real solutions exist outside their fantasy land. Now, onto the economic dumpster fire that we're all forced to endure. For years, we've been told that inflation is either A, not happening, B, a good thing, or C, entirely the fault of consumers who, I don't know, buy groceries and pay rent? But now that the problem is undeniable, the media is backpedaling so hard they might actually break the sound barrier. The administration's approach, lowering interest rates and actually acknowledging reality, is a direct contrast to the nonsense we were force-fed for the last few years. But naturally, the people who created this disaster are suddenly the experts on how to fix it. Oh no, not tariffs. The horror.
Prime Minister's visit tomorrow, and I will let the president discuss the details on the reciprocal tariff front. But this is something he believes strongly in, and it's very simple logic as to why the president wants to impose reciprocal tariffs. It's the golden rule, which we all learned when we were growing up in school. Treat others the way you want to be treated. And far too many nations around this world have been ripping off the United States of America for far too long, and that's why the president believes this will be a great policy that will benefit American workers and improve our national security.
Apparently, according to the geniuses in our media class, America is just supposed to sit there and take economic beatings from foreign competitors while pretending it's all part of some grand strategy. It's almost like these people have never run a business. Or worse, they've spent their entire lives in academia, where fair trade means letting other countries walk all over you. The simple concept of reciprocal tariffs, treating other nations the way they treat us, shouldn't even be controversial. And yet, here we are, watching so-called experts lose their minds over the idea that America should look out for its own workers. If you ever want to know where your tax dollars go, just take a deep dive into the ridiculous expenses the press secretary exposed. DEI nonsense.
This is a DEI contract, $36,000 for U.S. citizenship and immigration services. That is against the president's policies and his America First agenda. This is a $3.4 million contract, a Council for Inclusive Innovation at the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, Department of Commerce, another DEI contract that DOJ identified. I can continue to go through these. Oh, I love this one, $57,000 for climate change in Sri Lanka. What is this doing to continue the interests of the American people? Absolutely nothing.
Useless climate projects in foreign countries, and bloated government programs that exist purely to keep bureaucrats employed. It's the same story every time. Politicians promise accountability, then turn around and funnel money into whatever pointless initiative makes them look good on Twitter. The fact that this administration is actually calling it out is apparently offensive to the people who thrive off corruption. Every time a Republican administration tries to enact policies the people actually voted for, some judge inevitably pops up and declares that democracy must be paused until the right people are in charge again. It's a predictable pattern at this point, one that's less about law and more about maintaining control.
That the injunctions that have been issued by these judges have no basis in the law and have no grounds, and we will, again, as the president said very clearly yesterday, comply with these orders, but it is the administration's position that we will ultimately be vindicated, and the president's executive actions that he took were completely within the law, they were constitutional, and we look forward to the day where he can continue to implement his agenda.
The White House's stance is completely reasonable. Follow the legal process, but don't pretend these rulings are anything other than partisan sabotage. At the end of the day, the reactions to this interview tell you everything you need to know about modern politics. The media, career politicians, and professional outrage merchants are all throwing tantrums because someone in government is actually doing what they said they would.
President, in his truth, following the phone call with Vladimir Putin, said that he has asked Secretary of State Rubio, the director of the CIA, John Ratcliffe, our national security advisor here at the White House, Michael Watts, and Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations. As for General Keith Kellogg, he remains a critical part of this team in this effort. He's played a tremendous role in getting the negotiations to this point, and he's very much still part of the Trump administration.
Instead of acknowledging the reality of our economic and political situation, they're inventing boogeymen, clutching their pearls, and hoping no one notices their hypocrisy. But people do notice, and no amount of screeching from the usual suspects is going to change that.